We had no sound there. Thank you for letting me know that. We now have sound. Thank you for letting me be aware of that. We now have sound now. And thank you for coming in. This is JW World News. We appreciate everyone that wants to be part of the program. So, I'm going to put the telephone number up. And if you want to call in, by all means, feel free to do that. Let me put some numbers up right now when I'm thinking about it. We have a lot of buttons to push here. Sorry you couldn't hear me at first, but you can hear me now, I'm sure. So let's just let's get a couple of banners up that I want to get up. Let's get up our telephone number. So if you want to call in, you can do that. And also, I'm going to put up a little scrolling message here concerning our Still Alive in 2025 convention. That's on the bottom. We got a lot of people writing into me over the weekend that want to come to the convention. So we're looking forward to that. So, anyways, let me start off here. We didn't discuss this last night, but we can discuss it today because I find it rather fascinating. Excuse me. There was a YouTube put up by JW Updates. He does a really good job, and he's exposing the Watchtower just like all of us are. But he put a YouTube video up concerning the Awake magazine. So I just want to give you some information that I got from that YouTube video he put up. It's basically, as he's saying, the Awake magazine is surprisingly heading in a new direction. It's not like the old Awake magazines that we were used to, right? I mean, you could read anything in the old Awake. You could read about, elephants in Africa. You could read about how to make sweaters in Pangodia. You can learn all kinds of stuff if that suited your fancy. But the Watchtower's Awake magazine is now changing. It's got a different feel to it. Now, at one time, remember, the Awake magazine used to come out every 15 days. Do you guys remember that? It was 2 a month, really. Every 15 days, we had an Awake magazine, and we used to take it, put it in our book bag, and run around in service and place the magazine. And we always found some subjects. Some people out there maybe never worked placing Watchtowers. It was more appealing to the public to place an Awake magazine, right? I mean, you could find a subject in there that people could kind of connect with, unlike in the Watchtower. But anyways, they are now printing only one magazine a year. Well, I'm sorry, this is the first edition. I think there might be a couple editions. It doesn't really give me information here, but we talked about it before. I think they're producing 2 or 3 issues of Awake, but the first edition of the year is now out. And that's what I wanted to focus on here today. It's more like an infomercial. That's what the Awake magazine is turning into. It's really glorifying the Watchtower. It's telling the public how wonderful the Watchtower organization is. Hey, someone's got to give them a good rap, right? The rest of the world isn't, so they might as well print it in their own publication that they're a wonderful, wonderful magazine and a wonderful organization. So now what they're doing is they're telling the world, now get this, I mean, sit down when I tell you, okay? That they're now telling the world how good of a charity they are and how they help the local communities. I mean, do you see that? Is your community getting help from the Jehovah's Witnesses? I don't see much community help at all. I mean, even people who are Jehovah's Witnesses aren't getting that much help. But anyways, I don't see them being that helpful to anybody other than themselves, or maybe witnesses that have fallen through the cracks. Well, we'll get into that. Well, we're talking a little bit about that. Let me just get this off here. I got some pop-ups going on here on my computer screen. So anyways, there's a few things in this article in the Awake magazine, but first I'm going to discuss one thing. The Jehovah's Witnesses, according to what they're saying in the Awake magazine, it says Jehovah's Witnesses promote a balanced, healthy lifestyle. I don't see that, but I mean, if they say it, I suppose people might believe it. Jehovah's Witnesses promote a balanced, healthy lifestyle. They say our Bible educational program has helped people to overcome addictions and destructive habits. Okay. So, I know that maybe there are some that were addicted to alcohol. maybe addicted to drugs, addicted to sex, maybe, I don't know. But they are saying that they have helped people overcome addictions and destructive habits. I mean, I would like to just add my own thought here. How about the habit of saving money? The Jehovah's Witness organization Watchtower really never promoted anything about saving money for your old age. I don't ever remember them saying, now's the time to start putting money away so when you get old. No, they didn't say that because they would always say Armageddon's coming. Don't worry about it. You don't need any money in the new system. The new system's coming right around the corner. So people never saved any money. And consequently, today we have a lot of older Jehovah's Witnesses that have nothing. So they're claiming here in the Awake magazine that they've helped people overcome addictions and destructive habits. Well, I think it's a pretty destructive habit when the Watchtower keeps pounding into the head of Jehovah's Witnesses not to get a well-paying job, not to get a good career, not to get higher education. I think that's a bad habit. I think that's a destructive habit that the Watchtower hasn't helped anybody on. Don't you think it's important today for people to get a good job? Really? Look at if you just have a regular type job, you have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make a living. So the Watchtower's bragging in the Awake magazine that just was released a few days ago. They're bragging how they've been helping people overcome addictions and destructive habits. There's so many destructive habits Jehovah's Witnesses have got because of the Watchtower. So I found that very fascinating that, it jumps right out telling the people how great the Watchtower organization is. And another thing I gleaned from this article, now this is a complete surprise to me. I can't believe that why the Watchtower would even, well, I can believe, I'll give my feelings on it. But let's just go with this. In this magazine, I'm reading that the Watchtower is saying, we adhere to strict safety standards in our construction projects. Our volunteers who help build our meeting places and other facilities have used our Bible education work and have been trained to avoid injury. Our buildings are inspected on a regular basis so they conform to local safety laws. Why, in goodness name's sake, does the Watchtower have to kind of cozy up here to the governments and tell them how they're really strictly adhering to building codes? I thought it was a little funny that this even came up, but I get the gist of it, and I kind of see what they're doing here, and we'll kind of get your thoughts on it too. So this really is something that did catch my attention. They're adhering the laws of the land. Let's go with that. Then the other thing I extracted from this Awake magazine, the new one, is they say that they really provide humanitarian assistance. We provide humanitarian assistance. And it says during the last 12-month period, we responded to over 200 life-threatening disasters worldwide and spent nearly $12 million of donated funds to provide relief for victims. So they're telling the reader, they're telling the world, supposedly here through the magazine, that they're a humanitarian assistance organization. They're helping people in life-threatening disasters, and claiming that they spent $12 million in the last 12 months. It's $1 million a month. It's a sizable chunk of change, I will say that. But then they're saying that they actually admit that this money came from donated funds. So it's really not even their money. Friends, we know they're rolling in money. We know they're worth billions of dollars. So they're saying that donated funds, really not their money, is what they raise from local congregations and from around the world, you could say. And they have all these people donating money, and they give that money to the governments. And so it's not even their money. Friends, I'll tell you what, it's just kind of appalling to me that the Watchtower is seeping, going lower here all the time. Now, another thing it talks about here, and again, it's pandering to the governments. I find that this Awake magazine is pandering, they're cozying up, if you would, to the governments. Like, in what way? Well, let me tell you, when Ebola, remember Ebola? Remember that terrible virus that broke out? And people were getting sick all over the, well, not in America per se, but in African countries and pretty much all over, I think, South America. So they're telling the reader of the Awake magazine how they responded very adequately when Ebola hit West Africa and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and how they educated the people there on how to prevent the spread of this deadly Ebola virus. Remember that? And the Watchtower was so outspoken. It says, we sent representative to speak to groups on the subject, obedience saves lives. So what they were saying here is that they were providing, at least now in the Kingdom Hall, what they were doing is they were providing a hand washing station at the entrance of each of the Kingdom Halls to stress the importance of hand washing and other practical safeguards. So the Watchtower's making it seem like they're medical advisors here, and they've took the lead to stop the spread of Ebola. I mean, that's what's coming across to me. That's the way I'm in this article. That's what I'm reading. So they're really lauding themselves. Man, talk about braggadocious. These guys are lauding themselves. So now what you have here is you have in the Awake magazine, this is not the same Awake as yesteryear. It was written, at least this particular edition, from what I have gathered, it's written to expose governments now. No, well, it used to expose governments years ago, right? Let me put it that way. Let me reword that for you. Years ago, they would expose governments, how bad they were, how bad the United Nations were, how bad the political real were. And now we see this is a switch. Years ago, they exposed the governments. Now they're cozying up to the governments. What is that all about? I mean, I know what it's all about. I think you guys are getting the gist of this too. So they're more or less telling the world that they're not just a run-of-the-mill religious group. They are apparently safety experts. They know how to build and follow all the building codes. They are disaster relief heroes. They know how to go into a disaster area and help people. And also they're promoting the fact that they're health educators. They're the ones that are helping stop that Ebola virus. And even when it came to COVID, well, we know, even though it's not mentioned here from what I can see in this Awake, but they took a big role in that. They became all kinds of health educators, actually telling you to go out and get the COVID shot. But anyways, I'm not seeing this. I'm not buying it. Yeah, they say they're promoting a balanced, healthy lifestyle, but let's not forget the real balance they're achieving is between snatching up properties at bargain prices and making a big profit when they flip them later. They're a real estate company. They're not all of the stuff this Awake magazine is saying they are. They're even cozying up lately, and they're in more alignment than ever with the latest UN agendas. The UN, the United Nations, they have an agenda. And we've talked about it many times. We have conspiracy programs here in the Sixth Screen from time to time, but I'm not talking about conspiracy. I'm talking about the real facts here. There's an agenda. The United Nations has an agenda. They want to create a one world government. Don't put your tinfoil hats on. You don't need them. Get on their website and see what they're doing. And who's cozying up to the UN as of late? You guessed it, the Watchtower. Yeah, so whether it's promoting global health directives, pushing the latest medical guides, the Watchtower is saying, friends, we got you covered. Just read the Awake magazine. And I'll tell you what, they are trying to cozy, as I say, up to the governments because they want something from the governments. Now, I'm going to throw it out on the table. What do you think? I mean, this article, you can see, I'm not trying to twist it in any way, But you can see they are trying to be friends with the governments. It's something that they never really wanted to do before. But as of late, oh, the government's our buddy. We're going to do everything for them. Well, why do you suppose they're doing this? Do you have a clue why the Watchtower is doing this? Go ahead, hit *6. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? I mean, I'm going to give you my feelings. I want to get yours first. But I know why they're cozying up. I mean, think about it.
Hey, Rick.
Yes, go ahead, Chewy.
Hey, the reason I think they are, just right off the top of my head, is that they can sure point to that in a magazine if they get them in front of a court case. Well, looky here. No, we like you people. We like you people. No, look what we put in our magazine in the August or whatever magazine you're saying.
Yeah, and you'll find out, too, in our next story, all of the countries that are coming down heavy on the Watchtower.
Right.
They got to have something in print showing how they obey the laws of the land, showing how they uphold the principles of the governments. So, they're doing this for their own advantage. They're doing it so that, as they're going to court, as you say, Chewy, right now, all of these court cases in the past, they're learning. They've been going into some of these pedophilia cases, going into let's take Norway. That's probably even the best example. They've gone into Norway and they're trying to explain to the government in Norway that, no, we don't shun people like you say it. That's all exaggerated. People are making that up. Well, the Norwegian government didn't buy it. So they gotta, somebody's, it's really not being really clever and sharp. You have to do it. Do you remember watching Leave It to Beaver? I mean, maybe that program's a little old for a lot of our listeners, but there was a program on back in the 1960s and 70s, mostly the 70s. And it was called Leave It to Beaver. And there was a kid on there that really was an actor, and he was Eddie Haskell. You remember Eddie Haskell? How he was always smooging up to Mrs. Cleaver. Oh, Mrs. Cleaver, that's a pretty dress you got. Oh, Mrs. Cleaver, I like the way you wear your hair. It was all charades. That's just what the Watchtower is today. It's like Eddie Haskell of the Leave It to Beaver program. Always cozying up, trying to get something. And that's just what they're doing here in this Awake magazine. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And, they make it sound like they offer the hope to all of humanity. That's what they're making it sound like in this Awake magazine. But no, they're not offering hope to all of humanity. They're only offering hope for their own agenda, for their own advantage in life. That's the Awake magazine. I'm kind of waiting to see what the next edition is going to be. Well, thank you, Chewy. Well, anyways, you're on JW World News. Thank you for joining us today. And anyone wants to call in, you see the telephone number. We got a number of people on the telephone line. Anyone wants to call in, there's a telephone number on YouTube and Facebook. But anyways, I want to mention this. The service year, we talked a little bit about it last night. The Jehovah's Witness service year, well, it starts in September. I mean, it's not unusual. It's what they call a fiscal year. Corporations do that too. It doesn't necessarily go at the 1st of January and carry it through to the last day of December. Corporations have fiscal years. And the Watchtower fiscal year, it ends in August, and then it runs to next August, and the new year starts in September, which we're there now. But the reason why I even bring it up is if you get on some of these Jehovah's Witness Facebook pages, or even some of these Jehovah's Witness, I'm not talking ex-witness, but I'm talking Jehovah's Witness Facebook pages and their social sites, and read what Jehovah's... Can you read? Let me just mute the Chewy here for a second. So if you get on this site, and on the Jehovah's Witness sites on the social media, you'll see that they're wishing, I don't know how many times this happens, it's happening a lot, they're wishing all of their fellow Jehovah's Witnesses a happy service year. Happy service year, happy service year. I mean, it's almost to the point it's disgusting. And they're plastering it all over the social media feeds. And they're wishing that everyone has a good service year. And then I got thinking, maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. I mean, it's the only celebration Jehovah's Witnesses can have. They can't celebrate birthdays. They can't celebrate Christmas. They can't celebrate parade, 4th of July, or anything like that. So this is the only time they have a chance to really be vocal and be happy. Happy service year. I mean, this could really be carried over as well, I would think. You could carry this even further. How about for the memorial? And maybe for the memorial next year, they might be wishing people a Merry Memorial. Merry Memorial. Friends, this is what's going on inside the Watchtower. So we'll see how that all happens. And what really gets me thinking is when we were all Jehovah's Witnesses, we could not say Merry Christmas to someone. We couldn't even say Happy New Year. Do you know what would happen if you said Happy New Year? So, the new year rings in, so you say to a fellow witness, Happy New Year, Brother Bob. Well, they would think that the devil got to you. They would think that demons have inhabited you. That's how serious they take this. So, well, the new service year, here we are, September 8th today, and it's off to a bang already, but not in a good way. Jehovah's Witness organization, the congregations, they are losing brothers wanting to take the lead. This is becoming a real problem, a pandemic for the Watchtower. They need men. They have a lot of women. They have way more women in the Jehovah's Witness organization than they do men. But just to give you an idea, this service year is off to a bad start for them when it comes to getting men to take the lead. Now, they have sisters, as we talked about on the 6 screens, as of late, that were kind of filling in and running the Zoom meeting and handling the microphones, but that's kind of over. They did that for a little bit, but now the circuit overseers and they're getting directives from the Watchtower to don't let that happen. Get rid of these sisters. Don't let them handle a Zoom meeting. Don't let them handle the microphones anymore. You have to have a brother. Even if the brother is younger, it doesn't matter. You have to have a brother. So anyways, I got information that came in here to 6 screens this week. I wanted to share with you, and it's concerning a congregation. I can't say where, but a congregation that actually had 4 teenage boys appointed to the ministerial servant position in the local congregation. Now, that is something. So they took the sisters, but before the circuit overseer came, from the information that came to me, what he did is he told the congregation before his visit, he says, I want you to pull those sisters. Don't let those sisters pull them. I don't want them to pass the mic, and I don't want them to handle the Zoom meetings. He says, you gotta move them out of there. We're gonna move some ministerial servants in. So he picked 4 teenage boys in this one congregation to actually be ministerial servants. And how cute that is. 4 teenage boys. And I mentioned this comment last night. I kind of like it myself. So they're not new ministerial servants. I call them new mini servants. Maybe we should come up with a new term for young boys taking the lead, so to speak, in the congregation. So, but maybe I should be a little careful with that. I mean, after all, the Holy Spirit appoints these young men, right? Well, we have to respect the Holy Spirit. After all, it's appointed them. But what I'm really afraid of here. Well, what I'm afraid of for these young guys. Think about it. Can you remember when you were 17? Well, were you able to handle life's biggest predicaments? Were you able to handle adult matters? Well, evidently the Watchtower thinks they are. So I'm scared for the mental health of these young brothers. They will be exposed to stuff that they're not ready for. They're not ready for it. That's the way I see it. And like what? Well, the elders, we know how perverted many of them are. They go into a judicial hearing and they ask, if a sister had sex outside of her marriage and she was immoral, they would ask her everything about the sex that she had. And now the ministerial servant isn't going to be in there, but let's just suppose he's going to hear about this. Obviously he is, and they're grooming him to be an elder. But also, what if the ministerial servant goes on a call? What if he goes on a shepherding call? So you got a 17-year-old mini servant goes on the call with an elder, and he's sitting there. Now they're going out to really shepherd a brother and sister who was having marital trouble. Now let's say that the brother and sister in their 50s, 60s, and they're having some marital issues about sex or whatever it would be. I mean, the young man is going to be exposed to this. He might not offer too many suggestions. I would hope not. I mean, if you were a 50, 60-year-old person, would you take the advice of a 17-year-old mini servant who has probably not even had a girlfriend yet? Probably he doesn't know what real life is. He's still so young. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? Well, I just want to give my thoughts on that. But, friends, there's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of rumors that are going on right now. And, I don't like to spread rumors, but I do like to talk about them, kind of like you guys, right? I like to hear what people are saying about the Watchtower. And we know that the annual meeting, we know the annual meeting is coming up here very shortly. It's usually the first Saturday of the month in October. So that's coming up in less than a month. And I heard some things that may be discussed, but I'm not really sure. So don't say, well, Rick said this. Don't say that, because I'm just throwing it on the table. But I heard that it's possible they're going to start celebrating birthdays, but just no candles. I'm thinking that they're never going to say that. I can't really go along with this because, it's such a important thing that they tried to stress on witnesses. It's been written up in so many articles in the Watchtower about not celebrating birthdays. So, for them to make an abrupt change here and start celebrating birthdays, I think they're going to have some people lose faith. So I don't think they're going to play around with this basic fundamental concept of the Watchtower, worldly holidays. I don't think they're going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So can you imagine how many people will be shocked? You just stop and think about it. Suppose in October, when they have the annual meeting, okay, brothers and sisters, you can now celebrate birthdays. What? You would really kind of go nuts. You'd say, geez, all these years, I couldn't even say happy birthday to anybody. I could never have a birthday party myself. That would be too much of a shock to the Jehovah's Witnesses. I think many would lose the faith in the Watchtower. I believe the governing body even knows it. But, I brought up on here before, and I even this morning, I brought this up last night, but also this morning, people were commenting on YouTube and saying I was wrong. So, I'm willing to, on this next thing, now let me tell you what it is, and then you can tell me whether I was right or wrong, because I don't know. So what I'm thinking here, and we've been talking about this on the Six Screens a lot, that maybe what they would do, they're not going to go back, they're not going to come out and say we can celebrate birthdays. So I'm thinking what they might do is they might allow for full-fledged, baptized Jehovah's Witnesses to go out and marry an unbeliever. Now, people wrote to me this morning, I mentioned this last night, they're saying, Rick, well, they already can do that. A Jehovah's Witness can already marry an unbeliever. Well, I know that. But I have to tell you, this could create an issue, a big-time issue for that person. If you were a pioneer and you all of a sudden you're pioneering and now you got a boyfriend that's not even one of Jehovah's Witnesses, that would be a problem. You'd probably be removed, more than likely you would. Or if you're an elder, a ministerial servant, you can't have a girlfriend that doesn't want to follow Jehovah's directions. So, that is something. But, people told me this morning, oh, Rick, you're wrong with that. I don't know. Even if that happens now, the organization's not going to be happy about it. They're not. So, and anyways, another rumor that I'm hearing that might be at least suggested at the annual meeting is to eliminate weekday meetings. Now, this one has a little more solidness to it. It really does. It seems more viable And the reason why I say it is because it's already happening. So it's already happening in California and Hawaii and other Western states where they are not having a weekly meeting. They're just having the Sunday meeting. Now, you can say, well, is that a fact? It is, yes. I did get information coming in here to the Six Queens that's happening in some of these congregations. Look, here's the thing. I find it very, very hard to believe that the Watchtower wouldn't make a move like this. Friends, it's very difficult to be a Jehovah's Witness today. It's always been. But to go to meetings, to go to that midweek meeting, and then go out and service on the weekends and go to the meeting on Sunday, make it less burdensome. Make it less burdensome. And you might have more people join the organization, or you might have more people just want to stay around because it's getting less burdensome. So, but then I even think about it, boy, by cutting the meetings down and only have one meeting a week, well, there has to be time. Any cult needs time for indoctrination. Just look what happened during the COVID pandemic. A lot of witnesses left. It hasn't been the same since. And I'm thinking, it seems unlikely they would cut that meeting out. But then again, a lot of things have happened that we all thought was impossible. But anything, I guess, is possible. And some of the things we've seen the witnesses change on the last year, just the last year, friends. They no longer have to report time as they did before. They have to check a box, but they don't have to say, well, I got 6 hours in going door to door. They just have to check a box. Did you witness to someone this month? Yeah, I did. Check the box. So that's new. We also learned that, if a person is disfellowshipped, before they would go to the meetings and nobody could talk to them. For the most part, they would sit in the back and nobody had anything to do with them. Now, if you're disfellowshipped, according to the newest information we got in the last couple of months, if you're a disfellowshipped person in the Watchtower, you can now go to the meeting and people will talk to you. They can open up and talk to you. So that's new. And whoever thought it was going to be possible for women to wear pants? Wear pants to the meeting. So, that's now possible. Maybe the biggest thing that kind of hits me because it bothered so many men is the beards. You can now have a beard if you're a Jehovah's Witness. So, anything is possible. So we'll just have to see what the governing body's coming up with this year. So it's the craziest thing when you stop and think about it. The Watchtower, they flip-flop on a lot of things. And then, even when they say that, well, when they announced it 6 months ago that you can now have a beard, maybe it was even a little longer than that, but in the last year, you can now have a beard. Friends, that has got to be troubling. There's many men that wanted a beard, and they had privileges removed from them because they wanted to grow a beard. And now they're going to come out, fine, you can have a beard. So you can see that they're not getting. I'm going to tell you something. Really, the more I study this, and I study the Watchtower a lot because I have to for my newscast here every week. And, I've learned a lot about them, even things I never knew about them before I started investigating them with my news program. And I'm coming to see they are so hated around the world. They don't have this clean, crispy image that they had once before. The world is catching up on them. For example, in Poland, that's just this week, there was a big article in a Polish newspaper, and it was talking about how the Jehovah's Witnesses really are not a good organization. They do things, it's mind control, they indoctrinate, they shun. So the Polish government is catching up on these guys. We know Denmark has been doing the same thing. They don't like the shunning practices of the child cover-up abuse in the organization. Belgium, same thing, as we just said. Norway, we know what goes on in Norway. My goodness, the world now knows the Watchtower has lost close to $2 million a year in Norway. Friends, the Watchtower, just so we now have some figures here to make it very enlightening. In Norway, there are 12,686 registered Jehovah's Witnesses in the country. Now, what did that mean for the Watchtower? Well, the Watchtower would get $140 a year for each member. So the more members the Watchtower had, Jehovah's Witnesses, the more money they'd get. So just roughly here, Jehovah's Witnesses Watchtower was getting from Norway $1,778,000 a year. And because of their shunning, Norway said, no, we cannot have you be here as a registered religion. So they took that right away from them. That's why they're cozying up. That's why in our first story, when we were talking about the Awake magazine, that's why they're cozying up. You can't have these countries take this money away from you. That's gone. They'll never get it back in Norway. So what they're afraid of here now is the rippling effect, the domino effect. Call it what you want, but this is really gonna creep over now into other countries, because in Europe, a good many countries, not all from what I understand, but a good many countries give religions their money for having members. And like I say, it's $140 per member. I guess it's probably pretty much the same for other Christian religions as well. So, okay, so we got Norway. Now we have New Zealand. Oh, my goodness, New Zealand, down under, right next to Australia. That also is on the Witnesses Trail. So New Zealand is catching the same attitude towards witnesses as Australia. It knows they have a bunch of child molesters in there and they're trying to protect them. But here's what I like. Japan. Japan doesn't have too much good to say about the Watchtower organization. And I came up with, well, first of all, Japan published information about Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're not happy. They're not happy with what Jehovah's Witnesses do. They don't like the shunning. They don't like the isolationism. They don't like the child abuse, but they don't like the blood policies of the Watchtower. They don't like the idea that people can die for refusing a blood transfusion. So evidently they've done the numbers, and I guess they came up with this figure that I'm reading. I guess they must have it pretty right. But according to what I'm reading here, and I guess Japan's the one that came up with these numbers, they're saying that about 1,000 Jehovah's Witnesses die each year for refusing blood transfusions. So that's not just in the country of Japan. That would be worldwide. But 1,000 Jehovah's Witnesses, that's a sizable number. That's not a small number. So if you stop and think about that, now how many years has it been since the Watchtower has initiated that policy of no blood? I believe it goes back to 1947, but I'm not sure. It basically was more enforced in the early 50s, say 50, 51. But let's just go with that. So we got about 75 years of witnesses dying for not taking a blood transfusion. So I'm just looking at here. We have 1,000 a year times, say 75, but we really can't because there's more witnesses now than there was then. But I think it'd be reasonable to say 50 to 65,000 Jehovah's Witnesses have died for the refusing of blood transfusions. So that's something else. And other countries too. We got Slovakia. Well, they're now seeing the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're getting ready to more than likely pull the money on them too, take their charity status away. They don't like the idea of Jehovah's Witnesses socially isolating people and shunning people. They don't like that. And just Brazil in the last month, oh my goodness, they've got all kinds of articles in the Brazilian newspapers accusing the Jehovah's Witnesses of inhumane treatment and isolating former believers. So, it's not just me sitting here and making stories up. This is all real stuff. And then when I think about Russia, I think they are the ones that really boy, they don't have a good feeling toward the Jehovah's Witnesses at all, that they call them extremists, that they put them in the same category as terrorists. So here we can see the Jehovah's Witnesses are facing scrutiny worldwide for what they're doing with child sex abuse and hiding it, for what they're doing with shunning, for what they're doing for having people refuse blood transfusions. But it's just not in the foreign countries. What about here in America? How about Pennsylvania? Let's start there. We know that Pennsylvania does not have a good word to say about the Jehovah's Witnesses. That's a fact. We know there's been numerous men, elders, charged with sexual misconduct, pedophilia, and they've been being investigated since 2022, and the numbers keep climbing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you, every congregation in Pennsylvania is being interrogated. They're putting every congregation under the microscope because there's just so much that's going on behind closed doors in these congregations. Little children being raped, little children being molested and groomed. In the state of Pennsylvania, they don't have anything good to say about Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's going to trickle over to many other states here in America. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm just not trying to, you probably say, I get people accuse me all the time. Rick, come on, knock it off. Just knock it off. You're over amplifying. You're sensationalizing. Why do I have to sensationalize? Why would I have to sensationalize? Friends, it's real. See, we got accused earlier in our Six Screens career. Got to roll the clocks back about 20 years ago. And we got a real bum rap because Six Screens and our programs that we had were the only people who would speak up against the real evil in this organization. Other websites, they didn't want to do it. They felt like, gee, maybe we're going to get sued. Or maybe if we say something wrong, that we'll lose everything. I never had that feeling. Friends, I told you from day one, I'm continuing to wait for that green envelope in the mail, that certified mail saying, we're taking it to court. Take me in, please. I want to discuss this. I want to bring it before a court. We're never going to get the paper because everything we say here has truth to it. So we've been doing it for 20 years. Never a paper, never anything chastising us for doing it, but we were the first. Friends, we were on here in the early years when we came on YouTube it was back in 2009. It wasn't 20 years ago, but 2009, we came on YouTube. There was only a handful of other YouTubers. Today, I'd say there's 1,000. There's 1,000, maybe not 1,000, but say at least 400 or 500 YouTubers that are promoting and exposing the Watchtower and showing how evil they are. But, we go way back. I believe we were the first to get 1,000 subscribers. Now, I'm not saying that in a bragging way, but I'm saying that the momentum is caught on. Back then, there wasn't a lot being said about the Jehovah's Witnesses. People weren't leaving. We never got any points on the scoreboard. The organization was growing back then. It's over now. Stick a fork in the Watchtower, take them off the grill, they're cooked. They're not going anywhere. So all those YouTubers, all those people that have been exposing the Watchtower, thank you. Thank you very much because you made a big, big difference. A big, big difference in getting the word out. Well, you're on JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want us talking about, but we talk about it every other Sunday, which is today, and every Saturday night. So we got about 5 minutes left before we go into the Christian court. Does anyone have anything they want to say? Did you hear anything on the program today that struck your fancy? Is there anything you'd like to conclude with before we go to our new program? Just hit *6. Come in. Let us know how you feel. Is there something here that kind of irked you? Something here that got your mind going in a good direction? Well, let me see what we got here. Okay. I'm looking through the YouTube chat. Boy, a lot of people writing in. Thank you very much for doing that. Lots of people coming into the program this week. And more, I'll tell you, last night on our news, on our whole program, we had a number of programs last night. We are seeing new ones coming in. And when I even saw in chat, in the YouTube chat box last night, a woman came in, and from what I can gather, she was just disfellowshipped a couple weeks ago. And she says she's out of that organization. And here she is listening in to the Six Screens Live. So isn't it neat that we have a program live like this where people can talk in real time? If you'd like to say something, 520, is it? Go ahead, 520, you're on with us.
Yeah, I'd like to say something. This is Brother X. And some of the things you said are true. I've been in a lot of congregations, and I know quite a few people who have been molested, and they came and talked to me about it. And it's heartbreaking that they sweep it under the rug. Excuse me, there's a brother that was up in Toronto, and he told me about a brother that was on the governing body that exposed himself to it, and it messed him up. The brother's dead now, but it messed his mind up. And there is another sister that I know personally that her daughter got molested at a book study, and the guy got this fellowship, came back in the congregation, and the elders called her up and says, "We need to talk to you about the situation. We don't know what happened." And she explained to them what happened. They said, "Well, he's changed. He's been forgiven." The problem is with being a witness is that we want to serve Jehovah, but you're not honest. You got people who are elders who are nothing but painters, or they're not professionals. And you got these people counseling and giving wrong advice to these folks. And it's hurtful what they do. And they said, "Well, we're not responsible." But you are responsible, the governing body. I can tell you a lot of stories, Rick, that will blow your mind, that what happened with people in congregations. And I know personally that sisters who got raped. I know personally things that happen. If you can give me a call, I'd like to talk to you offline. Thank you.
Yeah, I can see that, bro. I'll do that. I'll give you a call. Give me a few days or so, and I'll get a hold of you, okay?
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for calling in. My goodness. Yeah, we have a lot of new ones. We have a lot of people coming in here on a Sunday, which is good. You know, for years we lagged along here. Our Sunday program never really did too much. But now all of a sudden things are happening. And the reason why it's happening, there's more and more people leaving the Watchtower. They really, really are. And, you know, they're trying to find answers. And if you can get information in real time, that's important to people. It can help so many people. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming into JW World News Sunday edition. And all those that spoke up, all those that have written in the Facebook and YouTube chat rooms, those on our radio network, I thank you all for wanting to be part of this program. Now spread the word. And if you like what we're doing here, like us on YouTube and Facebook, and, you know, spread the word first. Get the word out. We get more and more people to come in, and they can be helped. No, not just by me sitting here talking. They can be helped by you when you speak up and let your voice be heard all around the world. And when witnesses hear this, or at least witnesses that are questioning, they hear this, they say, wow, Rick's not the only one. There's a whole lot of people in that community. So thank you for coming in here today. I want you to keep standing tall. I want you to keep waving the flag of victory. Don't you ever give in, up, or out. And the last one, leaving the Watchtower, by all means, turn off the new light. Well, we're going to go to another program now. We got a program. It's called The Christian Court. Now, I know you hear that and you head for the mountains, as I say. Don't head for the mountains. Why don't you stay with us? I'm not trying to convert you. If you're not a Christian, don't worry about it. You're going to hear things that are fantastically important in your life. You're gonna hear things that the right way to do things and the wrong way to do things. Did you folks ever hear of a furry? Did you ever hear of a furry? Well, that's a relatively new term that's being tossed around in our culture. A furry. Do you know a furry? Do you want to be a furry? You say, well, I don't even know, Rick, what a furry is. Well, they're going to tell you next on the Christian Court. So by all means, stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Stay on the YouTube channel and stay on our Facebook channel as well. So let's end the program here. We'll see you in just a couple minutes.